Hey everybody, it's Randy Ray, the literate Texan here at Driftwood Ranch, and it is Tag Tuesday. I'm doing the end of the year tag, which I saw over at Melinda at Web of Stories, and she saw it at One for the Books. And this is a short tag with just 5 questions, but I'm a bit of a blatherskite, so I might be able to make this into a longer video. Blatherskite was my word of the day before yesterday, so I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly. Anyway, I'm going to get right into the tag. I guess this is, I guess it is coming up on the end of the year. There's only 14 weeks left till Christmas. So number 1, are there any books you started this year that you need to finish? God, yes. Oh, Lord. I'm so bad about starting books and then not finishing them. I think on my currently reading list over at Goodreads, I have something like 25 books. But the ones that I started this year, as opposed to last year, that I'd like to finish include these. I'm thinking of Ending Things by Ian Reid, which is a book that my daughter read and wants me to read too so we can discuss it. And I probably read, the first 60, 75 pages before something shiny caught my eye. But I don't know, it wasn't particularly interesting to me. I'm sure there's a twist at the end that's really going to just amaze me and blow my mind. But I just don't know that I care that much. But I do want to finish it because, heck, it's only, 200 pages? Heck, this is a candidate for Shorty September. Maybe I'll read this tonight. I don't know. That's number 1. A few days ago, I started Jimmy Buffett, A Pirate Looks at 50. Jimmy Buffett was, of course, I was a big fan of Jimmy Buffett, even though I never made it to any of his concerts, which is really weird because, in the heyday of Jimmy Buffett concerts, which, it's been decades long, I imagine, I went to a lot of concerts, but I never went to any Jimmy Buffett shows. And I don't know why. I had plenty of friends who were parrot heads who would have loved to have gone. When I worked at Hotels.com, I started off in the call center there, just answering phones, making reservations. And I had a different Hawaiian shirt for every day of the week. That's all I wore to work were Hawaiian shirts and Dockers. And I was that guy. So, but that was largely inspired by Jimmy Buffett. So anyway, this one's fairly thick, actually. I'm about 73 pages in, but it's a 450-page book. And I'm really liking it so far. It's clearly, it's clearly not written by a ghostwriter, which is one of the things that I liked about Elvira's memoir too, Cruelly Yours. But anyway, I've had this sitting on my shelf for quite a while, but since he passed away the other day, I thought, well, I should go ahead and pick it up and start reading it. And so I'm enjoying it so far, but I'm easily distracted too. I'm not like Steve Donahue. I don't just sit down and read a book and then finish it. But, he reads 3 times faster than I do too. This next one, this is another book. Oh, check this out too, by the way. I love it when I'm going through a stack of books and I find out that I've used a $20 bill as a bookmark because, because it means I've got more money than I thought I had, right? So it reminds me of that song by Robert O'Keefe. He's got some people show up at the bar and he reaches into his pocket and finds 3 20s and a 10 that he didn't know was there. This next book, I love this cover quote because it's from Harlan Ellison. It says, Octavia Butler is a writer who will be with us for a long, long time. And Kindred is that rare, magical artifact the novel one returns to again and again. And I love stuff that's worth rereading. This one's got a cool bookmark too. I don't know if most of you probably recognize him. That's Criminale. I think our audiences overlap quite a bit. But this is one that my daughter wanted to read with me. And anytime I can get my daughter to read a book with me, I'm going to. So I started this the other night and I enjoyed it. I'm about 50 pages in. Looking forward to seeing how it turns out. I like time travel novels too. That's not all. There's more books that I started this year that I need to finish. This is still question number 1, folks. Also, I'm doing a buddy read of The Name of the Rose by Umberto Eco with my friend Grix. And I don't know if Steve's going to join in or not. We talked to him. We talked about it briefly over the weekend. This is a pretty thick one. And I've fallen behind, and I owe Grix an apology. I don't know that I'm going to finish this month. That was the original plan, but it's already, the 19th? So this has got almost 600 pages. I don't know, man. I don't know if I'm going to finish or not. I'm going to try. And there's still more. I'm not through yet, folks. Okay, so I don't have all 3 of the Del Rey editions of The Coming of Conan just sitting right here handy, but I do have the first one, The Coming of Conan the Cimmerian, which I definitely want to finish this month if I can. Okay, so, but I've got the other 2 in there. Actually, I've got all the Del Rey Robert E. Howard books, including the best horror stories, the King Kull stories, the Solomon Kane stories. They fill up a whole shelf. They're huge. But anyway, I'm going to post another video about another one of the short stories today, I think. So, sorry, I'm a little hoarse. Okay, you would think by now that would be the end of the books that I've started this year that I need to finish. No, there's more. There's one more, okay? So, I'm doing a buddy read of The World According to Garp with Greg at... See, this is where my memory draws blanks. Another bibliophile reads, another bibliophile. I'll put it down in the contents so you can go to his channel. But we're both reading our 40th anniversary edition of The World According to Garp. It's even better than I remember, probably because I understand a lot of the content better than I did when I read it at 12. There's a lot of sexual content in this. There's actually more sexual content in this than there was in The Hotel New Hampshire, which I finished reading earlier this year and which was fabulous. I loved it. But I'm really enjoying The World According to Garp. I think John Irving's written a total of 14 novels, and I think his earlier ones after the first 2 are probably considered his best. But I've never read a book from John Irving yet that I didn't like. So that's what I have started this year that I need to finish. Number 2 is, do you have an autumnal book to transition? I really don't. Although I am fascinated by books that fit well within certain seasons, okay? So, for me, there are 2 books that really say fall. And I don't know that I'm ready to reread Something Wicked This Way Comes again this year. I read it last year, but it's, I didn't like Something Wicked This Way Comes by Ray Bradbury the first time I read it, or even the second time I read it. I went back to give it another try. The third time I read it, I realized I was reading it wrong. Something Wicked This Way Comes isn't so much a novel as it is a very long prose poem. And if you read it as a very long prose poem, in other words, reading it aloud, reading it a little more slowly, paying attention to how the words sound, it's a much more enjoyable read. So, I'm probably not going to get to that this year. The other book that says fall to me is in part inspired by Something Wicked This Way Comes, and that is The Dead Zone, which is the first Stephen King novel that I ever read. Bought a copy of it at a garage sale for $0.25 when I was a teenager, and at the time I kind of looked down my nose at Stephen King, which is really weird because I was reading trash like Pierce Anthony at the time. But, and don't get me wrong, Pierce Anthony, he does a great job at what he does, and I've really enjoyed a lot of his books. But your regular Pierce Anthony reader's got no business looking down at 70s Stephen King or even 80s or 90s Stephen King, Stephen King's one of those authors that's kind of hit or miss for me. Sometimes he's just way better than you expect him to ever be. Like in the case of 11/22/63, God, what a great book. But then he'll publish something like Fairy Tale, which was really pretty bad. It's like, and it comes on the heels of something really good like Billy Summers, which was terrific. So I'm probably going to do a reread of The Dead Zone. I don't have a copy sitting here at my desk to show you. It's on the bookshelf in the kitchen, but I have a hardcover edition, and I believe it's first edition. But it's pretty beat up. It's not worth anything, but it's worth a lot to me because it's an opportunity to reread my first Stephen King novel. So if I am going to have an autumnal book to transition, it will be The Dead Zone by Stephen King. Number 3, what are the 3 books or series you want to read before the end of the year. Okay, so there's more than 3, naturally. One is Richard Rousseau's new novel, Somebody's Fool. And I've never read anything by Richard Rousseau that I disliked yet. So, but part of me wants to go back and read Nobody's Fool and Everybody's Fool first, because I don't remember them that well. Nobody's Fool I remember just fine because I've seen the movie. I don't know how many times I've read the novel, 2 or 3 times. But the other 2 books I haven't read. This I haven't even cracked open yet. But Everybody's Fool I have read once or twice too. So, but it'd be just nice to read the whole trilogy at one time. But I definitely want to get to this before the end of the year just because I love the author so much. Also, I made a video the other day about my favorite book of all time. So I'm not going to go into too much detail about what this is about. But this is my wore out old copy of Everything Matters by Ron Curry Jr., who I don't know why hasn't published a novel in several years. Maybe he's done, maybe not, I don't know. But I sure wish he'd write some more novels because I really enjoy them. But this is one of the ones that I'd like to do a reread of this year. And so those are high on my priority list of books that I'd like to read this year. Also, I know it's Shake-Timber and I haven't really gotten started on the Shakespeare stuff, but I can read a Shakespeare play in an evening. I think most people can if they don't stress out too much about the words. But for Shake-Timber, the 3 books that were chosen were Romeo and Juliet. This is my Folger Shakespeare Library Edition, which I really enjoy. And this is Richard III, which is a slightly bigger paperback. And a friend of mine has my copy of Antony and Cleopatra. But I do want to read those 3 too. So, yeah. So in terms of high priority books that I want to read before the end of the year, that's those. Number 4, is there a book you think could still shock you and become your favorite book of the year? Well, The World According to Garp might be my favorite book of the year, although so far my favorite book of the year was The Quiet American by Graham Greene, which I think is going to be really tough to top. Somebody's Fool might surprise me, though. I'm planning to read Little Big around Christmas time and maybe revisit The Lord of the Rings around Christmas time. I already know how I feel about those books. I love them. So, number 5, have you already started making reading plans for next year? Every year I make a New Year's resolution that I'm going to read all 37 Shakespeare plays plus the sonnets plus the big poems. And my approach is always to do one play a week because, I don't have a lot of difficulty reading Shakespeare like some people do. And, most of these plays are performed in 2, 3, maybe 5 hours tops if you do all of Hamlet. So, reading them shouldn't take much longer than watching them be performed in my view. So finishing one a week doesn't seem like a big deal. You just set aside an evening for it and go. So, but for whatever reason, I never follow through on it. But I think it would be a fun thing to do in 2024. So that may be one that I come back to. Also, 2024 might be the year that I finally tackle Proust. I don't know. I'm definitely going to reread Lonesome Dove next year because I enjoyed it so much. I will probably revisit. I thought about doing it this year, but I probably won't get to it. But I probably ought to revisit the canon tales of Sherlock Holmes, the ones that were written by Conan Doyle. Oh, speaking of Conan Doyle, that's another book that I started this year and haven't finished. And I was doing a read aloud of it here on this channel, The Lost World, one of the Professor Challenger books. So that is the end of the year tag. And I really enjoyed Melinda's video about this. You should check it out. And I'm not familiar with One for the Books. I'm not even sure I'm subscribing to them yet, but I'm going to go subscribe to them right after I hit the stop button on this video. And I'll probably be back later today with another video. Thanks for watching.